Open session at 7:01 p.m. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Obadoza, Ms. Lajano, Ms. Benitez, Ms. Cardoza, Ms. Dalmacio, Ms. Tejada. Here. Mr. Ochapinti.
Here.
Mrs. Ian Garrett. Present. Ms. Salahuddin. And Mr. Lee.
Here. Ms. Dalmacio, would you lead us in prayer?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 8, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, Dr. Glory?
There are no changes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second on the agenda? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Item 9, there is nothing to report out of closed session. Number 10, A, board report. Ms. Dalmacio.
Unfortunately, I missed the last student advisory meeting. I went to the PTO meeting for a little bit at the Turner last night. I was actually presenting for Asian Club, but it was really nice. They're really supportive. They're really into the project, which is like a flip-flop drive for the kids in the Philippines. We presented to you guys last year. And they had really good ideas, so I think that me and Amanda should start going to those.
That's great. Okay, so let's see. Last weekend on Saturday, I went to the event hosted by the Jefferson Council here at the district office. It was the Journey for Justice National Book Tour event. The book Journey for Justice: The Life of Larry Itfield. If you don't know who that is, he was a labor organizer, a Filipino labor organizer. And so he organized agricultural workers in the 1930s, and then in 1965 he led the Delano grape strike so that workers could receive the same federal wages, minimum wage. And then he joined the United Farm Workers and worked along with Cesar Chavez. And it was a really empowering presentation because, you know, as growing up Filipino, even in the Bay Area, you don't see anything in textbooks or anything in school about you. And people who look like you, do what you're doing, grew up the way you did. So it was just really empowering to be a part of this. And also the volunteers there were from Westmore High School, the Green Hats were working, the Filipino Barkada Club from Westmore was there volunteering. Mr. Vargas, the advisor, and he's an English teacher at Westmore, did this incredible spoken word to music, and I don't know who the woman was who was singing, but it was incredible. So this is the first in a 4-book series, and I'm really looking forward to us partnering more to make this more well known. Thanks.
Jump over to Ms. Benitez. Anything you want to add? Board report out?
Sorry that I'm late.
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. I don't know. Sorry.
Oh, good. No worries. All right, Mr. Archibald.
Yeah, there were a couple events prior to this meeting, Jefferson and Serramonte, but I did want to make that. Wasn't able to, but we're on strike in Oakland now. As a teacher in Oakland, I feel like it's relevant news to promote and understand. Every district has different situations. In our district, having completed and ratified a precinct contract, I'm proud that we have positive labor relations, I feel like, and community-based discussions on where we want not just our school district to go, but where our community to go. And so with Oakland, working there, I've seen just like San Francisco, big city districts aren't just leaders in education and public education policy discussions, but they also can learn from other districts. And I feel like one of the things I've learned, not just being an employee and a volunteer and former student here and a member of this community obviously on board, is that we have a lot to offer to other districts. And a lot of those solutions are off radar with big districts where the politics becomes bigger than the public policy that should really ground public education. And so I think when we're watching the news and looking at what's going on in Oakland and East Oakland, where they're trying to shut down up to 24 schools, those are the kind of discussions that happen at that level because politics has gotten ahead of education. And so I think it's very positive and really very reassuring to be grounded in the work that we do here and to bring that to my colleagues and of course the community in Oakland, because we have these conversations and they do ask, you know, what are you doing in San Mateo County? What are you doing in Daly City and specific areas that we might be able to do? And I find it very reassuring that people are open to hearing those things. So just as a nod to what we're doing here, because we are an underfunded district, we are the lowest income districts in many ways, and we are finding solutions, and I feel like having those discussions across cities is really important. And so, and that goes out to the students, faculty, staff, and all community that's doing the work here in this district. So.
I had the pleasure of going to the Terra Nova fundraiser breakfast for the band a couple of weeks ago, and it was fantastic. Everybody went, my family, Riley. So it was great to get to know all the parents and teachers and staff there. So it was great. As well, I had the pleasure of attending a academic council meeting at Terra Nova High School as well, which was great to kind of get to know the staff there and know the school better. And I'm planning on a school site visit there in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be exciting thing for me to get to know the school better. And other than that, I'm looking forward to today's meeting. So.
Well, it was fun to see you at the band breakfast as well, and it was a good presentation last night at the Terra Nova PTO meeting. Jessica, it was nice to see the video that you guys shared with us previously, but also to see the way the parents responded to it. I know I think there might have even been a couple of tears in the room with the final interview. So that was very, very cool. It was a good break last week. I was able to get out of town with my family and see a couple of schools for Hank. And then on Saturday, I had the pleasure of being the Master of Ceremonies for the Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame induction banquet, and there were 4 Pacifica residents who were in the Hall of Fame. And it was just fun to just be in there in a room with about a couple hundred folks who, a lot of friends and families of the inductees, to hear their accomplishments, including one young man who is actually on the U.S. National Rugby Sevens team and actually just a few weeks ago played a game against the New Zealand All Blacks. So that was actually very cool. And there's actually, if you go to his Instagram feed, he actually has a cool video of him actually running over a couple of New Zealand players. So that was pretty cool to see. And I shared my own, athletic peak in high school, which was batting .333 as a junior.
You played baseball?
I did.
What was your bat?
I was .333, batted .333 as a junior. I was 1 for 3. I was 1 for 3. So there we go.
Oh, I forgot to mention about the signing day that we went to.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. It was great to be at the Jefferson National Signing Day for Paul. I can't remember.
We can't pronounce his last name.
But for him to,
awesome.
But it was wonderful to see him, select Baylor as his school for full ride for the next 4 or 5 years of his eligibility. So that was really fantastic to see the Jeff community come out for that young man and the positive press for that day. So that was it for me.
I have some things to talk about.
All
Yay.
We left you some stuff, huh?
Yeah, you did, so thank you very much. So one of the things I wanted to update everybody on is my executive team and I are trying something new this semester. My coach recommended that we make semester visits to the school sites and go right at the end of the school day, bring yummy snacks. I don't know how yummy our snacks were, but we bring snacks and drinks and sit down and have a very informal conversation about needs for the school, whether it was something curriculum related or HR related or facility related. And so far we've been to Terra Nova, Westmore, and Jeff. Each meeting different, a little bit different. But we did Westmore today, and I have to say that overall it was very positive. We got very thoughtful questions, some suggestions, some things that we can act on, some things we can think about, and so we still have Thornton and Osh to go to, but I think this is something we're going to continue. So that's been great. Yesterday, we had our State of the Math meeting. Ms. Baca did a wonderful job of facilitating a district-wide meeting. We had, I would say, most of the math teachers in our district attended, and it's 3:30 to 5:30. We're retired by 3:30, so, and administrators from various schools were there. And Ms. Baca started out with walking us through various data sets with a focus on the gaps and the fact that some of the gaps are getting wider. And one of those presentations, I'm really proud, was done by Amanda and by Angeline, our student advisor, our trustee and advisory president. And it was a wonderful presentation. They did a great job. And if anything, we need more student voice like that when we're contemplating change and making decisions. So it was great. And then there was a lot of time built into the meeting for people to talk at their tables and talk about what ifs and what are some things that we can do. And I have to say, by the end of the meeting, it was a hopeful meeting. I think everyone felt that if we could focus on math together, think of it as a marathon rather than a sprint. We'll work on this for years. So I felt really good about that. So well done to Ms. Baca on that. I do want to kind of connect back to what Mr. Ochapinti said when we talk about labor relations, because it's like any other relationship you have. You either nurture it and communicate, or it doesn't work. And I wouldn't want anyone to take for granted the relationship between management and AFT, because it takes work. It takes a willingness for people to sit down and listen and to brainstorm and to put students first. So it's not accidental. We're working really hard at it, and I think it's showing. So I wanted to say that. So thank you, Monica. We had some really bad rainstorms, that atmospheric river. So we had one of those before break, and then we had one these last couple of days. And those were some pretty vicious storms for this area. Even in my apartment, my windows are I couldn't sleep, it was so noisy. But hats off, you should feel really proud of Tina and her maintenance and operations crew, because everybody was out early in the morning, walking the campuses, making sure that things were safe and ready for students. We couldn't do much about the power going out. I mean, we could do the best that we can. That was before break. But they did a really good job. And you consider how much rain came down these past couple of weeks. Hats off to them for that. And then just a final word, we're going into recruitment season. So Tony and I are gearing up to go out, and the goal is to have all of our positions filled before the start of the school year. So on March 9th, she's going to one career fair down south. I'm going to, where am I going? San Francisco State. And we are going to interview and offer jobs on the spot, of course pending their referrals and things like that. So we're gearing up for that. You heard a little bit about the things that she's doing, so we are on it. We're going to get everybody hired. And that is it. Thank you.
Great. All right. Item 10C, student work presentations, Thornton High School. I believe you're all in the house, so let's do this.
Good evening, everyone. I've prepared a statement before introducing our crew. I promise this is short, but the font's huge.
Does it look short?
Good evening, distinguished board members, Dr. Deloria, Ms. Van Raphorst, Ms. Baca, Ms. Presta. It is an honor to represent Thornton High School. It is an honor to sit beside you this evening. Tonight, it is also an honor to introduce our Thornton students, our scholars. They will represent their work in leadership as well as share gifts in honor of African American History Month. The students will highlight two individuals whose achievements have led to making our communities, America, and our world a better place. A special shout out goes to the JUHSD family, who worked tirelessly for student success, and to the Thornton staff, thank you all for doing whatever it takes. I look forward to coming to school each day, working beside you all, and as Ms. Liz DiNatale would say, fighting the good fight. So with that, I would like to first introduce our first presenter, Ms. Valeria Benitez. I can help you. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. So, my name is Valeria Benitez. That's me. So, I'm going to present about Huey Newton. So, like how you said, we do different presentations, and I'm going to gladly present about the Black History Month. So, I'm going to educate you guys about Mr. Newton. So, Huey Newton was born February 17, 1942 in Monroe, Indiana. Newton moved to Oakland, California as a toddler with his family. He was the youngest of 7 siblings. He grew up in difficult times and would get suspended and in trouble with the law multiple times. He then graduated high school without knowing how to read. He later became involved in politics and his community. Newton also became focused on his education and taught himself how to read after high school. He attended Merritt College, studied at SF Law School, then the University of California at Santa Cruz. He faced many criminal charges over the years and even fled to Cuba to avoid his charges. Before coming back to the United States, Newton faced 15 years in prison for murdering an Oakland police officer at a traffic stop, but the public pressured free Huey and became popular, which helped his case and was set free in 1970. Huey Newton later died on August 22nd in 1989 in Oakland over a drug dispute. Huey Newton is remembered today as a leader and a hero today. And Huey Newton also had many accomplishments. Newton graduated from Oakland Technical High School in 1959. He attended Merritt College in Oakland, California, earned his associate's degree, and later earned his PhD in social philosophy. Newton met Bobby Seale at Merritt College, and both co-funded the Black Panthers, not the movie, but the Party of Self-Defense. The purpose of the Black Panthers was to patrol African-American neighborhoods and protect residents from police brutality. Newton became the Black Panthers Ministers of Self-Defense. Black Panthers' target was Oakland police because of their history of harassing the Black community, so they decided to police the police. Black Panthers made the 10-point movement, which was the ban to end police brutality, provide employment for African Americans, land, housing, and justice for all. Black Panthers also have caused over 10,000 African Americans to receive health care and educational initiatives. And because of Newton's and Seale's co-funding of the Black Panthers Party of Defense, by 1969, 49 Black Panther clinics were open across America. Sickle cell illness was brought onto the government's agenda, and those who don't know what it is, it's when red blood cells die early, which leaves a shortage of healthy red blood cells and causes black blood flow, which causes pain. But the Sickle Cell Illness Control Act set up was finally funded by the government in 1972. Learning about Huey Newton gave me inspiration to be more of a leader and be fearless about making change and one day become a public speaker that causes change like him. And yeah, maybe they may not have solved all economical and political issues, but they sure did appeal and highlight the changes that needed to be done. Thank you.
Dr. Merker, if you want to turn around just so the camera can see this wonderful presentation.
Is there one behind you too, Blair? There's one behind you?
Oh,
No.
I just messed up.
So at this time, what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring up Mr. Mike Rodriguez. He is the SLC moderator and also our economics and math teacher. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Rodriguez to introduce our next speaker.
Hello everyone. I just want to take this time to introduce our new SLC student president, all right, Lori Vaquera. She's really distinguished herself as a leader in the classroom, getting people involved and excited with school activities. I can't say anything but positive things about her. She brings energy and positivity and enthusiasm in the classroom every day. And with no further ado, here she is.
Hi. So, my name is Lori Picaro. I am a part of the SLC leadership class. sorry. A little nervous, so bear with me. Okay, so
It's just us.
Just,
Yeah, it's
So-
just us.
thank you for taking the time. Thank you for taking the time to hear about what I have to say about our amazing school. So, I will be talking about a couple of the events that we've done and we plan on doing, including spirit days and like barbecues that we've done. So we recently had 2 barbecues which has ended, which resulted really good because we planned it out and everything just went really good. The students seemed really like happy and excited, which I felt really good about. We've had a hot cocoa day for a week where if you came to school before, well, if you didn't come to if you came to school on time, you would get free hot chocolate, and if you came late, you'd have to pay. So yeah, we've also had a pie eating contest in the month of November to for like the Thanksgiving, and it really ended really nice, and it was really fun. We also had Taco Tuesday, where I found a restaurant to cater for us, and we also had a taco eating contest, which was, I don't know, it was really nice. A lot of the students just like stopped participating after a while, but I'd say it still ended really nice. The day was really just a good day.
And just to add though, looking for restaurants that catered and would be able to serve the number of students that we have in a very short notice, she definitely came in handy when she found that. So definitely the keepers that made that day happen, I'm for it.
So we've also ordered some Thornton shirts, which was created by leadership students as well. And yeah, we also have done candygrams where we took a walk to Walgreens and bought some cards, and people could for free just send a little candy and a card to anyone they wanted, which ended really good. Yeah. So future events we are every month we try to get creative with spirit days, from like relating to like the holidays of the month, and yeah, we also are planning to have a basketball tournament at the end of the school year. I'm pretty sure here. Last year was really fun and really exciting. I really look forward to it. What I'm really looking forward to in the month of April is the Glide. We got the opportunity to work with people who could like help us feed like the homeless, which I'm really excited about. So for the barbecue planning, we had one of the leadership students' fathers come, and he grilled some burgers for us. We had hamburgers, and we also got some like drinks and chips to serve with all the sides and stuff. And we had to take trips to Smart Final to buy like stuff like plates and napkins and essentials we needed. We also took care of like speakers, playing music, having a DJ, and just making sure the school was like in check. Yeah. And yeah, the leadership people were in charge of serving the food, and it just ended really good because working together was it's just something that we know how to do. It's easy for us because we just work together. And so when we have events, mostly when we have concerts, we give away gift cards to help to motivate the students to participate. We've given In-N-Out gift cards. I know we recently gave a Wingstop gift card for the taco eating challenge, and those are also just some like examples of kind of gifts we have in mind to give out to the students. Some spirit days we've had recently was like Jordan Day. People came out and wore like their J's or anything apparel relating to Jordans. We've also had a pajama day. Everyone usually comes in their pajamas, so not a different day. We had an all black day where people just wore black, and if you wore black, when people participate, we usually give them Krispy Kreme donuts. We go around in the morning in homeroom and see who's wearing or like really participating and give them donuts. Yeah. So some things that we have at Thornton, we do have after school tutoring, and the staff try helping with getting some students some jobs. We have a board in the office that has some listings of like internships we can join and jobs that are in the area, which is really helpful. We also have some programs like Fly and Each One Reach One. I have been in Fly for probably 3 semesters now, and I've even joined their leadership program, and I love the program so much, and I just appreciate how like they give us like knowledge on like the law and our rights, and yeah. We also have Sex Ed Squad, where I think someone from the Daly City Youth Center comes by every week to talk about it, and yeah, I really appreciate them. So yeah. So why is this so all? Oh, sorry. I wrote a kind of why Thornton is important to me. So coming to Thornton has changed me in so many ways. I received support and motivation from all the staff. I can say that each and every staff member cares and pushes everyone to graduate, which I haven't gotten from anywhere else, especially my old school. Before I came to Thornton, I never really cared about my future and my success. I was not motivated, and I didn't care about my education or even bothering to show up to school. I remember being excited to come to Thornton for a fresh start. In a couple of weeks, I was already so close to the staff and the students. To this day, I could truthfully say I look forward to coming to school every day. I literally started to dread the weekend. At this moment, my future and success are my number one priority. I've been focused on nothing else but that, and I believe that it is all thanks to Thornton. If I didn't come to Thornton, I have no idea where and who I would be. And joining SLC has been one of the best things that happened as well. I've become president, which is really cool. And I've just being a part of planning all the events and like the activities that we do with the other students has been a blast, because I feel like the experience has made me more comfortable with myself and who I am. It's also brought me closer to all my classmates. It feels good planning the events in the way I contribute, because it makes me feel like I have an impact in the school. I know Thornton is different than most schools, but I still feel like I'm having a full high school experience. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, look at me. Yeah, perhaps comments. Yeah. The leadership program is honestly super awesome. Yeah, I've been in this program when it like started. I remember Mr. Rodriguez first coming in my home saying, "Hey, who wants to join the leadership program?" You know, and honestly, Mr. Rodriguez makes it like fun and chill, and like we could actually be in that government class that regular high schools have. And you know, and it's awesome because in regular like high schools they have government classes that, you know, you have to have a certain grade to join, you have to have this to join, and it's like it's honestly like great, because you know, oh my god, it gets me emotional, because like these teachers do everything. Sorry, like they really try. I'm so that they really try to like have it succeed in different ways. So that's my comment. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the support that the teachers show to their students. It's awesome. I like the barbecues, that's really cool, because we do food fairs, but I think the barbecues would be a good way to get everyone involved. And the hot cocoa for showing up on time, that's a really good incentive. And the donuts for people getting to dress up. I think you guys have really good like incentives to pull people in. So yeah, I think we could definitely adopt that.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna start crying.
The tissue's not good.
Right. This is my 5th year on the board, and every time Thornton students and staff come up and do their presentation, it's always the same passion and how, you know, the staff at Thornton has changed lives because everyone's so invested. And I know when we worked on our partial tax together, you guys were out there in force, and it was so amazing. And because you care, and it's not to say no one else cares, but you care a lot, and you can see it when we go on site. And students, God, I mean, Valeria's been this incredible voice here. She speaks, she's real, you know, and she calls us on a lot of things, you know, as you do as well. But just listening to you talk about everything that you're doing at the school and what it means to you is really, you're doing something so special because you're making a difference. And boy, you're doing a lot. I think we should do pajama day.
A board meeting for
Mr. President.
It'll be the first meeting in April.
Okay. But thank you so much for everything you do, Dr. Marenko, and entire Thornton staff. Please thank everyone for us.
Yeah, I'm always impressed with all of our students. Thornton's special in a different way, and I feel like one of the reasons why when I decided to go into education, I chose Thornton to be like the school that I learned from other teachers and students to learn how to teach. I feel like it's probably the most important training I've had in public education to learn how to do that. And I learn all the time from our students, so it's true. We learn a lot from this, and the kind of things that Thornton does is true. You don't have the same kind of access to other schools. And so to see that y'all are doing that at that level and taking a lot of that as your own initiative, those are the same kind of things we see when we honor for African American History Month. Dr. Hugh Canute, youth initiated, student initiated. Even when he didn't have the resources in the community, he went and fought for them for himself and for his community. And so being a part of something larger than yourself is becoming that and then giving back. And so this, I feel like many of our student presentations, and if not all of them, exemplifies that. And I'm very proud because, you know, when you get to Thornton, truth is, you know, a lot of people perceive that as being a step away from high schools in a negative way, but you learn how to make something out of nothing because everything you have is something you give. You know, when you can give something back, that's more powerful than just having something that you can distribute. A lot of times, that's what makes it count. So, good work and keep it up because it is inspiring.
And I absolutely agree with everything that he said. And of course, being a parent of a former Thornton student, I definitely see firsthand all the passion, all the support and love that you give all the students. So we definitely appreciate everything you guys do at the school. And an awesome presentation. Valeria, Lori did a really good job. I know you're nervous it happened. It's okay. It was wonderful. And thank you for, you know, kind of giving us synopsis of all the things that you're doing at the school. It's nice to see that you're really, I know sometimes you can feel a little alone when you're at, you know, you're like putting in a different environment, but to really try to get the students into a community and know that, you know, we're not alone and we're here to support each other and do things together and show team spirit. That's, I think, one of the most important things of, you know, being at school, and you guys really, really do a good job of doing that for the school. Other than that, thank you. Thank you for all you do. I cannot show enough appreciation for all the things that you guys do. So thank you again for everything that you do for the students. And, you know, anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation, Valeria. Thank you so much for sharing your work and your passion and your emotion for the school. And Lori, you've done a really great job sharing, giving us a glimpse into what's been happening at the school this year. Really fantastic stuff. And I'm really proud of you guys being able to head out, especially to go feeding the homeless out with Glide. I mean, I've gone out, not with Glide, but with other organizations, and it's definitely a very gratifying experience to be able to do that. And I'm very proud of you guys for being able to give of yourselves in that way. It's huge. And I'm looking forward to being on the site in 2 weeks for a career day. So very excited about that. And so it'll be a lot of fun to share a little bit of what I do when I'm not here. So it's gonna be good.
Your real job.
Yeah, my real job. Morning, back.
So everyone knows how I feel about Thornton. I mean, sometimes Candace doesn't know where I am, and she calls, and oh yeah, she's over at Thornton, yeah. But what I want to say is, of course I love both presentations, but the way the students talk about the staff, how welcoming they are, actually the staff is welcoming to everyone who comes to that school. Okay, there hasn't been a time that I haven't come to Thornton where, everyone's smiling, we're all busy, the work is never done, but they're all helping each other, stopping what they're doing to help someone out. It's just a great school, and I love it. So thanks for coming tonight. They're not getting paid for this, they just show up.
No, and always, thank you.
Oh, yeah, always thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, if nothing else, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Motion to approve. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Ms. Tejada, do we have any blue cards this
We
evening?
do not have any blue cards.
Okay, very good. All right, item 13A, and I guess A1 all the way out through A25. Dr. Gloria, we've got a whole bunch of board bylaws and policies. I know it's going to be a wonderful discussion for the guests in the meeting this evening.
So students in Thornton, don't feel like you have to say for the bylaws. Just because I think they're exciting doesn't mean everybody does. So board, tonight I want to walk you through what I did over my break. It was an absolute pleasure last week, taking a look at all these and revising them and updating them. But if you don't have your packet, you can click on the item, but I have some changes that have been sent to me for your consideration. And the packet's not paginated, so I'll give you a few seconds to find it. But if you could turn first to bylaw 9005. The very beginning. Okay. Look at me when you're on 9005. I know you'll have it. Okay, thank you. So.
No, I was like, you want to raise my hand?
Okay, so I had a board member recommend that under number 1, that we add with an Oxford comma, keep learning, comma, equity, comma, and achievement for all students as the primary focus. In other words, we would be adding equity in there.
What?
So number 1, we're going to add, I'm recommending that after learning we add equity. So keep learning, equity, and achievement for all students as the primary focus.
Okay.
Are you, that okay with everybody? I think that aligns with the work that we're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Now if you can flip to bylaw 9121.
You skipping around?
Well, we're not going through everyone, but the ones where some changes are recommended. And if you have others, you can bring them to me, okay? So on 9121, this is for the president. There is a recommendation or request to add an additional statement after the first sentence. The board will select from those members who have completed MIG, so the Masters in Governance Training, and CSBA President's Workshop.
Works for me.
Okay,
Sounds
go ahead.
good. Question, what time frames are those generally provided in? Are those like year-long?
So the way this is written, that when it comes to time for the next president, whoever you select must have completed those things.
Must be completed.
Yes. But completed before you can be selected to be the president.
Or the honor, I said the offer within the year's frame.
No, you have to have completed it before you take it.
No, I know, I mean, just.
But they're offered every year.
They're generally offered annually, yeah.
Yeah, they are. Is that okay? All right.
I actually have that down as a note.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Capture some of the notes. If you would now move to E 9150. So not the bylaw, but the exhibit 9150. Again, glance up at me when you get there. Okay, so this is cleanup. This is, there were some recommendations from previous boards on coming up with the guidelines. And so we want to clean up, if you go down to selection and term, number 1, each student of the Student Advisory Council, comma, the student trustees, and each of the 2 board representatives will have 1 vote for each student trustee position. So in other words, the people who get to vote for the student trustees are the Student Advisory Council, the student trustees who attend that meeting, and the 2 board reps. Okay? Moreover, at number 3, we are recommending that the term commences on the last day of the current school year for a term of 1 school year. So in other words, they would start on May 31st this year. That way they're part of this year's transition. And they're with the group that's getting ready to graduate. And then they're with us again until the end of that school year. Is that okay? Rather than waiting until August, okay. All right. The next thing is on bylaw 9220. Number 2, we're looking for this page. It looks like this. Thank you, I appreciate your work on this. Well done. So in this, this bylaw has to do with how we handle elections for board members. And so we have been following option number 2. So I would cross out, you would cross out number 1, and I would only be including number 2. And also, this last election, we did limit our words to 200. So that highlighted piece plus option 2.
On the prior page.
Any discussion on that, or is that okay?
No, that makes sense.
And then if you turn the page.
Did you have a question with the structure committee?
I have just a comment, maybe, in the last sentence, in option 2, it says the district may require candidates to pay their estimated pro rata show the cost to the district and as pursuant. When we're talking about district, this is navigated through the county elections office. Yes. This is your county jurisdiction. So when it refers to district, it's just a reference to clarification.
So don't we get a bill from the county for this? The elections over?
We don't pay our district, we pay the county.
Right, now that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Basically, that didn't happen previously, that was for the candidate statement, right?
Do we want to put language here, or is this kind of understood in terms of terms that I'm referring to the district, or in fact referring to the county and the county elections office? Because we don't pay the district. Does that make sense?
Did we actually have a hard copy of the ballots? I mean, everything was mailed. The candidate statements, weren't those all mailed home to people?
Well, because it was uncontested, we didn't
You didn't have to do that.
have to do it. But we had to pay on our own for the candidate statements
To the county directly.
to the county directly.
Yeah.
County elections office. So I mean, do we want to change the language in terms of to the district, or is that superfluous?
Yeah, that's true, you're right, actually, I don't think we need to make a statement about paying to the district because the candidates are paying to the county directly.
Should we just cross out share these costs.
Let me
in
check
advance.
with council on that, because there's actually an election code reference there,
Right.
and I always hesitate to delete something that has, so let me just check with council.
Okay.
Let me tag that. Hang on a second. Because I have some other council questions too. Okay, and then the tiebreaker on the next page, option 1.
Option 1 or option 2?
I have option 1.
So-
That was what was selected before. But you can certainly have a conversation. This is what was selected last time board members looked at this policy.
And what year was that?
Oh, that was like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Is this open for discussion?
Yeah.
I would go with option 2 myself.
Well, there's a cost for that.
No, I wouldn't, because of the runoff election, that would cost money,
That's a lot more, actually.
a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, just the likelihood of having a tie is pretty slim.
But that's why this is in there, in case there's a tie.
The unlikelihood.
And then we're saying determine the winner by lot, by vote, right? Or just,
By law.
At that time, and that lot would be the board itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, it raises an obvious question. In the interest of democracy, if you have tied another candidate, how that election is up to the sitting board might be complicated in terms of endorsements, in terms of political allegiances, et cetera, conflicts of interest, maybe in terms of who has maybe even donated to those campaigns. I would encourage maybe looking at option 2 or an alternative option that does not involve the wishes and biases of the school board in terms of determining who wins the runoff election, or who wins the tie.
So if I can add, in the education code, these are the only 3 options you have. So you have to select from these 3 options.
So winner by lot would look like what?
We would notify the people in the tie, they would come here, I'm
We just
guessing,
pick a name.
and then you vote. Yeah, but you actually,
Or we pick a
the
name.
candidates actually appear in front of you,
Right.
and then you take a vote.
Well, that's winner by lot? Because lot seems to me like you pick a name out of a hat.
right, that's what it sounds like to me.
I mean, unless it's defined by ed code.
Can we get that
I will
clarification?
get clarification on that. Yeah, that's how I interpret it.
Yeah, I think that's meant to be a vote.
No, because it just wouldn't be fair. If it's a tie.
I sat through one like that, and it was hard.
Yeah.
I would
It was
imagine.
very hard.
If the ed code only provides these options, I mean, option 2 likely is slim of a tie, given the number of votes. It would have to be down to, I mean, if you have an odd number of voters, right? It's simple. If you have an even number of voters, I think option 2 is kind of like being struck by lightning, right? It can happen, but if it happens, then
A tie would be pretty rare to begin with. We're just simply determining which is the best way to go in that highly unlikely event. Personally, we talked about it will happen next year or something like that. But,
Right. Of course.
Jinx.
but I can let Dr. Durek,
Let
Laura.
me get information from council, and then you can each, after I share that, you can each individually give me what your opinion is.
Okay.
and we can do it that way.
Perfect.
Okay, now if you could flip to 9230. This has to do with orientation of the board. And actually, it would be good for orientation of the student advisors too. So this paragraph talks about all the content that I'm going to get together, so that as part of an orientation, there's a process actually, a training process for new board members. The recommendation was for me to maintain all of this pertinent information in a shared folder. So to add the sentence after the last sentence of the first paragraph.
After standards of conduct. After that phrase, okay.
Where do you see standards?
Oh, I'm sorry, which page? I'm sorry.
I'm
I thought you were talking about the first paragraph on the previous page. All right.
Okay, sorry, second page, top paragraph. I would add the sentence that the superintendent will maintain all pertinent information in a shared folder. so that everybody has access to it, but for the specific purpose of orientation. So things like the budget and the bylaws and those kinds of things. Any discussion on that? Okay, all right. And then the last recommendation, if you would flip to the back to meeting conduct, 9323. 9323, page 2. Page 2. Bring your finger down to number 3. Thank you, Ms. Tejada. Sorry. Your copy machine that had
I got it.
Pointing at number 3? Okay. The paragraph below talks about blue cards. So the second sentence, I recommend that we insert, the board shall have the option to limit the chair time.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, otherwise, you're saying you're only gonna allow 20 minutes for public comments. I think sometimes it's in our best interest to let it go more than 20 minutes, but that would be up to the board to decide. So the board shall have the option to.
Are we pointing out any typos right now?
Yeah, I'm happy to hear any typos.
Let's see, number 3, persona, should be person. And on the next page, 6C, after the, of the appropriate complaint procedures, see, delete that second one.
Okay, thank you. Good catch.
We could just go back to 9250.
9250.
9250, second page regarding the health and welfare benefits.
This is like old school.
Page 2.
Yeah, page 2. At the bottom, there's 2 items there with regards to health and welfare benefits for current board members. Are we not doing, are we,
Where are you?
sorry, at the bottom of the page. It says
So-
health and board members may participate in the health and welfare benefit program. Is that just an option?
That is a true statement. I mean, they pay for all of the fees that are. And it says that in the third sentence down, board members who elect to participate shall pay the full cost of premiums.
So it's not just going to be, okay. All right.
Other questions, recommendations, typos that you found?
Let me see. I just want to, might as well discuss it. So 9012,
90?
12, just so we have clarification. On the second page, the one paragraph on that second
I'm
page.
not there yet.
This is a board member electronic communications.
Okay, where on the second page?
To the extent possible, is the one paragraph.
Got it.
So just so that we know, to the extent possible, electronic communications regarding any district-related business shall be transmitted through a district-provided device or account. When any such communication is transmitted through a board member's personal device or account, he or she shall copy the communication to a district electronic storage device for easy retrieval. So if I get an email from, if I get an email to my personal account, I should send it to my JUHSD account.
Yes.
And then that way, it can be retrieved if necessary.
That's
So
for
that
public
it's board
records.
business,
Mhm.
if it's board business.
Correct.
So I just want to be sure we all know that. And then, see, under organization, board bylaw 9100. first page. Number 2, appoint the superintendent as secretary.
That was bad.
Okay. I'm gonna be nitpicky here.
No,
This is
I-
what I
That's
do.
your job.
This is
yes.
what I do.
It's gonna be
So-
posted to Gamut, so please.
Yeah, so I, as part of my daytime job, I proofread like
Look how
hundreds of pages.
professional, we trust you.
There's not
Yes,
too
as
many typos
secretary,
given
it's
how
not
much.
good.
You know, it's fantastic,
Yeah.
but that's why I read it, because I knew you did put so much work into it.
And I'm a math
You
teacher.
know,
and
you
know
had
how
to
that
read
goes.
it. So, board bylaw 9220.
Yes.
Okay, under consolidation of elections, the third line, there's an extra period after code
Oh,
1302.
yeah, there is. And this is why I'm asking all of you to look at this, because
Yeah.
hopefully with all of our eyes, we put
Well,
the jump
you-
typos.
the thing is, you can't, when you're doing track changes, you can't, it's hard to see.
It is.
Yeah.
Good catch.
And then I think this is something we don't put into practice. Bylaw 9240. Just that, I just want to point out. So at the bottom of the first page, just how we have to schedule opportunities for board members to report on the activities in which they participated. Or, like board training calendar, if we go to CSBA, that we do a report. I think that's what this bylaw says. If we go to training, we should report what we've learned openly. You know, not just, I think not just as a board report under communications, but as an agenda item.
Can you point out to what paragraph you're in?
And there's the bottom of the first page, and then there's the meetings, let's see. And then there's also the very last paragraph of this bylaw. Board members shall report to the board,
okay.
orally or in writing, on the board training activities they attend for the purpose of sharing the acquired knowledge or skills with the full board and enlarging the benefit of the activity to the board and district. So,
Would you prefer, so just a thought, to clarify, I hear what you're saying that it's,
Mhm.
that we need to do, sometimes it's more than just the board report. So do you want me to change to schedule in that last sentence on the first page to agendize?
yes, what do you guys think?
Is that a word, agendize?
Just want to go into more detail about what we learned in the classes that we took.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And then on the second page, Ms. Tejada?
No, that's fine.
Okay, that's fine? Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have a question about under bylaw 9320, meetings and notices. Third page.
Page 3.
So there's the paragraph that says, it's under emergencies and disaster preparedness plan. There's a paragraph that says, except in the case of dire emergency. It says, board president or designee shall give notice of the emergency meeting by telephone at least 1 hour before the meeting to the local media that have requested notice of special meetings. All telephone numbers provided by the media in the most recent request for notification must be exhausted. Do we have any local media who've requested notice? No. Okay. And that, in your experience,
In my experience, I lived in very different communities, and there was a lot of local media.
They did have lots of local media.
Yeah, and first, I mean, it would have been a real dire emergency to have a special meeting anyway.
Yeah.
But they did have to call in Santa Monica because of all the destruction. They had to close schools in Malibu
Right.
because of, so there, this paragraph actually applied.
And that's all I have.
In that, I noticed big punctuation, there's a missing period, and these fingers are not a copy of the papers, so under 9320 at the bottom.
Which page, Nick?
9320, regular meetings is the.
Page, which page?
9320, oh, the very first page, sorry. The very first page. At
Okay.
the very bottom. There's-
Oh, yeah, thank you for that.
There was one other thing, it was about posting for board appointments. Posting in local newspapers was the paragraph. And I don't know if we should expand that to news outlets online, local news outlets frequented online, or if they're like.
Is this, which board bylaw are you? Is it the vacancy, 9223?
No, he's talking about 9140. Because I'm using that handy dandy index.
I saw somewhere else, actually.
Well, you said board representatives.
It was board for filling vacancy appointments, for special elections, it was like that it would be posted.
So it's not board representatives?
No, 9223 is events causing a vacancy.
I believe it might be 9223. 9223.
What page?
The third page. So, here.
Provisional appointments?
Under, provisional appointments, yes, second, very first sentence. So, it goes on in the second line. Board shall advertise in the local media solicit candidate applications and nominations. And then it further kind of elaborates on that in the next paragraph. Within 10 days of the appointment is made, it goes on to say, notice shall be published in the local newspaper pursuant to the code and posted in at least 3 public places within the district. Is there any kind of elaboration we want to go with beyond that? That's right.
It's next
The
page.
paragraph says within 10 days. after
Page
the
2,
One more page.
Page 3.
made.
And it's the within 10 days paragraph. It's the third line.
That one's after the appointment is made.
Yeah. I mean, just in terms of like language and newspaper, I'm a supporter of print journalism, but not everybody frequents that information through a newspaper. So do you want to say media outlet? No.
And advertising the actual vacancy. Or
Relevant.
advertising.
Yeah.
So what are you saying?
It comes off quaint.
Well, wait, are you asking the
Should we use local media outlets or relevant local media outlets? How is that announced? Yeah.
Are you saying, or are we advertising a vacancy in the local newspaper, and are you also asking about posting it online? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, to kind of sync the language, maybe at least, maybe just say.
Because
local
you're
media.
saying newspapers is archaic now?
Well,
still read
it
newspaper,
doesn't,
but-
but media isn't just limited to the newspaper, the media could be.
Right.
But yeah, the first one, the second part of the language is just to mirror it so that we're consistent with our, since it's all the language, right?
So what you want is the second paragraph to mirror the first, the notice shall be published in the local media? Is that what you want?
Yeah,
So that it's parallel.
yeah. Just in terms of consistency, I'm sure this language will appear in other places when we.
So in the first paragraph, we have the board shall advertise in the local media. So the recommendation from Mr. Ochapini is that the notice shall be published in the local media.
Right. Okay, that's fine.
And it's also under fourth page. It's in the newspaper cap, it's in under CF 9100, well, it's the second to last paragraph. When an appointment is being made, you use the third line, it makes actually, the second one, it makes 3 references to newspapers. So, and I'm sure this language is not exclusive to this bylaw, but I think it's important to note that.
All right, let me rewrite that paragraph to include social media. So that's a parallel structure. So am I using the right terms? So the second to the last paragraph on page 4, when an
Right.
appointment is being made, I mean, I can't just easily stick in social media because I already wrote the
We're not
sentence.
saying social media, are we, or just media?
Media, just media.
Local media.
Media. In media, yeah,
Yeah.
in local media.
But the qualifier for this, the reason why to do, it's a newspaper of general circulation, so,
It wouldn't hurt to probably do, I mean, is there more current language, or is this just,
This is it.
that's
Most
just it?
people cover.
This is the most, this is like
Yeah.
directly lifted from
CSBA.
Ed Code.
but I think you keep in general circulation.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to do?
I think general circulation is good too, because it kind of speaks to like relevant media or, you know,
I think this might be a case
popular
where
media.
it would make best sense actually to mention both newspaper and any
Yeah,
online,
I
sort of
think
thing,
so.
online media, some way to work in online media in addition to the newspaper.
And then we better double check what Ed Code says for, is it,
People who look to newspapers for public notices, that's
right,
kind of standard.
there's a whole section just for notices.
Yeah.
Is there anything else besides this?
Any other feedback?
Word.
Okay, so what I will do is, I have to check with council on a couple of items.
Yep.
If there's anything radically different, I'll consult you. There's one item I'm gonna consult with you through email, and then I'll reply individually on those 3 options, okay?
Okay, so I'm looking up Ed Code 5328.5, and it
Yeah.
says newspaper.
Okay.
So we should go down, we should stick with what the.
Leave it alone.
Do we add local media or?
No, stick with what the Ed Code says.
So now let's check Ed Code.
That would be changed, real estate, change.
Are you looking at 5092 now as well?
Yeah, I'm looking at 5092 now. It says newspaper, all right.
One of the codes. Visual local.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable changing anything that comes straight out.
No, it's straight out Ed Code.
Legislative.
If it's straight from the state, then we leave it.
All right, so I'm hoping to get this cleaned up, answers from you, so for a March 5th approval. And we'll make them into nice little memos for you.
Yes.
I'll create that shared folder for all of us, and then we're gonna have a party when it's done.
Give you a party.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
If it comes up that there are absolutely no newspapers, then I think we should change it.
Is there anything else to add to this discussion?
Yeah.
Do we need to move on?
Okay,
Okay.
yes, Mr. President.
All right, item 14A1, low performing student block grant, Ms. Baca.
Good evening, President Lee, good evening, members of the board. Tonight, I will be presenting the plan called the Low Performing Student Block Grant, which is a state plan or a state grant. It's a state grant where the goal of providing funds to serve students identified as low performing based on the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessment on English Language Arts and Math. Low performing means that the student received a score of 1 in both math and English language arts, or a 1 on one subject and a 2 on the other subject, or a 1 on one subject and a 0 because there was no valid score for the other subject. So there are 100 students that qualified and met this criteria, and because of that, we are allocated $197,602 to be spent by 2021. And as a condition of this grant, districts must develop a plan on how these funds will increase or improve services for the pupils identified through this grant. And also the plan needs to indicate how the effectiveness of the services will be measured. So, and lastly, this grant shall be discussed at a regularly scheduled board meeting. So based on our Smarter Balance performance and also the previous board meetings and staff feedback and student feedback, it is clear that we need to focus on math improvement. And so in this plan, we would like to strengthen our Tier 1 instruction by offering funds for professional development for teachers, which is $100,000, which will be measured by teacher and student survey, walkthrough observations, and Smarter Balance summative assessment in math. And also some money for teachers to collaborate after school to discuss district benchmark assessments and the results of these assessments. And this will be measured again through the results of the assessments and the Smarter Balance summative assessment. And finally, some instructional materials to support the implementation of the mathematical practices. And that's for $57,602. And so before you, I would like to recommend for the board to approve this plan.
Are there any questions?
Actually, I have a question. So this is money we're getting because people got a 1 on this? Okay.
Not met.
I know we've talked about it, I think, briefly in the past, but a lot of students that I know at our school didn't take the CASP test very seriously. So I just like to say that the not meeting standards may not be entirely, maybe we should take the money, but the not meeting standards might not be truly represented.
And so I think what we could, really look at who are these students that received the 1, and look at the performance in their other subjects and how they're doing overall to see if, it's really, if it matches.
Ms. Baca, at the last principals meeting, didn't we have something agendized with the principals to talk about how we could talk up the CASP like we did the PSAT and SAT last October?
So our principals and vice principals had presented to their staff about how important it is to do well in the Smarter Balance, and it's just as important as the SAT and the PSAT.
So right now we're focusing on math. And so I'm looking at the services and the metric, because I'm guessing that we have to lay out this plan in order to get the grant.
To lay out this plan, it has to be aligned with our LCAP actions and services, which is our, one of our action services is to implement the California state standards and professional communities in all curricular areas, and that's our goal 1, one of our goal 1 actions. And I believe that, in the past we've focused a lot on improving English language arts. And so, with this grant, it will really help us with strengthening the instruction in math and just that collaboration that teachers really are expressing that they really want to talk about, student work.
Is this part of the work that was done on Monday night?
And so, that was the kickoff. We had presented, again, trends and data of the students that started in Math Course 1 in 2015, 2016, and they are seniors now. When they were placed in Math Course 1, where did they end up as a senior year? Who are these students? We also look at their SAT scores, and we look at the equity gap that has, increasing from 2015 to 20, like right now.
So, but the bulk of this would be spent next year, is that? Okay.
This is good news that we have that support, so yeah, we go for it. But, that said, I would be curious to know, like, have we done this in the past where we've had alternative assessments in these circumstances, or has there been any feedback or input prior to this by teachers or students who were looking for another assessment outside of CASB, other assessments given?
So in the past, they've administered the MARS assessment through the Silicon Valley Initiative Grant. And I know that, our teachers didn't find the assessment as useful as they wanted to be. And so we're developing the scope and sequence for Math Course 1, Course 2, and Course 3, and we will be creating benchmark assessments to assess those skills. And so, they're very excited to basically, do a restart, because now, they have their math textbook that can help them with,
Creating benchmarks.
And I think that for too long, the board hasn't received what I would consider interim or formative data. So you get the annual data, and then you wait patiently for the next year and the next year. So really, the goal of the interims would be to give one in the fall, late in the fall, and then one in February. And that helps us make sure that we have a coherent curriculum across the district. Not that everybody's teaching it the same way, but it gives departments and it gives the principal, and it certainly gives us at the district office an idea of where we need to turn our direction. If we're not making it, what is it that we need to do? What are the adjustments? And then we should be presenting that data to you, showing you some evidence of how we're going to get to improving those annual scores. So these interims serve a lot of purposes, but they have to be created by teachers. They can't be top-down devices.
So with the purchase of supplementary instructional materials, do you have a group of teachers who?
So we have a current group of teachers. There are 6 of them that's working on the scope and sequence, and we are recruiting, for more teachers to do work on the Course 2 and Course 3. But we do have a core of teachers that's working on this already, and they're also aware, all the math teachers that attended the math meeting, that, we have this grant. And so of course, we will seek from, their input and their expertise on what kinds of materials they would need. So it's still, premature to really decide what is needed until, we've really fully developed our scope and sequence.
How did you come up with the general breakdowns by the 3 classifications?
It's just based, with the 40,000, it's based on the 45-38 after school meeting and the number of math teachers, and the same thing with, the $100,000, and pretty much just working with, either consultants or, companies will cost about that much. And again, it doesn't have to be spent till 2021, so we'll probably spend, most of it next year, and some, whatever was left over the following year. And we can also spend it now.
The 6 teachers that you mentioned, are they representative of the entire district, or is?
So this is an action item?
Yes.
Move to approve low performing students block grant acceptance. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, very good. All right, item 14B1, Resolution 2018-19-19, Proposition 13, Funding for Schools and Communities Act. I think we're generally in awareness of what this resolution is and what we are saying, right? You guys have any questions with regard to this? Because it's all about the commercial property piece of Prop 13 and next year's vote. Any questions, any comments?
This is a template from the CSBA.
Did the template.
Evolve. Maybe some facts on this. So evolve is a political nonprofit organization that advocates for certain policies, and as we all know and are aware of, we have been hearing, maybe we'll be hearing a lot more soon about it, is Prop 13 is, in essence, has loopholes, and a lot of commercial real estate exploits or at least takes advantage of those loopholes, which creates a funding gap in public education. And so we've known that for generations now, or at least a generation. And this is a resolution back in the proposition that will be on the ballot soon to create some equity by restoring funding. There's a lot of support across the state from elected officials and community members alike. And the resolution reads, I don't know, should we read the resolution just to state it, or do we need to?
Sure, I'd be happy to read it. Okay. Whereas since the passage of Prop 13, 1978, school funding in California has experienced severe limitations in what was once the main source of funding for schools, the property tax, and whereas while the intent of Proposition 13 is to help homeowners, loopholes in the system have permitted major commercial and industrial properties to avoid reassessment, a windfall to commercial property owners at the expense of vital school funding. And whereas the property tax has shifted away from commercial property and toward residential property throughout the state and in virtually every county, and whereas per pupil support relying on state funding has declined from the top 10 in the nation to the bottom 10, and whereas school funding is $3,400 per pupil under the national average, while California's cost of living is among the highest in the nation, whereas public schools in California face challenges in providing an equitable and fair education for a student population with vast differences in language, poverty, parental education level, and other social, educational, economic factors. And whereas research has proven that investments in high-need students raises achievement levels, lowers poverty, and increases the productivity of the workforce. Whereas estimates by academic researchers at USC have identified that reassessing commercial property will bring $11.4 billion in property taxes to cities, counties, special districts, and schools, and whereas USC has identified that nearly 80% of the revenue will come from just 8% of large properties owned by corporations and wealthy investors, many of them out of state. And whereas USC research shows that a majority of commercial owners already pay close to market value, making the current system inequitable among businesses, benefiting large owners who have held land for a long period, and whereas the current failure to close the commercial property loophole has led to poor land use and inflated land values, particularly limiting the ability to provide adequate high-density housing and land use. And whereas the Schools and Local Communities Funding Act will be on the ballot in 2020, and whereas the measure provides for at least $4.4 billion annually for schools K through 14, and whereas the measure will provide funding to all districts, over and above Proposition 98 funding and following a local control funding formula to all students in need in all districts, and whereas school district bonds will be retired faster or rates lowered, whereas the Act will also provide billions in funding yearly for cities, counties, and special districts in locally controlled revenues for parks, public safety, housing, infrastructure, health and human services, libraries, and the environment. Whereas the Act will improve land use, provides tax relief to small businesses, and level the playing field among businesses. Now therefore be it resolved that the Jefferson Union High School District Board of Education supports the Funding for Schools and Local Communities Funding Act. So with that, is there a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution 2018-19-19, Proposition 13, Funding for Schools and Communities Act.
Second. Is this a roll call vote? We need a roll call for this.
Okay. So, roll call please, roll call vote.
You have to record the ayes and the noes.
Ms. Tejada?
Aye.
Mr. Ojapinti?
Aye.
Mrs. Ingleri?
Aye.
And Ms. Salahuddin is absent. And President Lee.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0 with 1 absent. All right, item 15, consideration of future agenda items.
Discussing creating a new district logo.
Oh, okay. Motion to note that. Put that on a future agenda. Is there anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn? Don't everybody call it out at once.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I mean, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Meeting adjourned at 8:26 p.m.
All right.